I was thinking, I recently had a mishap with my mobile telephone. Which is what it gets from freezing the touchscreen on me whilst playing the most obnoxious wake up and get out alarm since the ATF stopped being allowed at government sieges. And aside from wondering which was more apt to call the thing, it is mobile and it certainly does have a battery, so I'll go with the North Americans and call the thing a battery phone. I began to wonder why I had one of these things, and more especially why it had basically lived next to my left bollock for the last 2 years, vacationing nightly to snuggle up somewhere within arm's reach, waiting for the warmth and moisture of June's again. When no one ever called me on it, and I hadn't put money on the thing since Taylor's Comet flew by and ushered in the last opening of the Seven Seals, but never mind that, I'll TiVo it. Technology is a word that is a little too broad to describe the nitty-gritty, like the phrases vehemently religious or sex offender. So what I'm really talking about, I guess, just as you might guess that your upcoming wedding is a terrible mistake, or that it was you who didn't turn the gas off, not that they'll ever be able to prove it, is electronic technology, or rather consumer electronic technology. Go to the Atlas Mountains in Morocco, go on, I dare you, you great big lush, and you'll meet people who sleep on the ground for half a year while they're tending their goats, and remote villages with great big satellite dishes on the roofs so they never miss an episode of Dr. Gobshot's Magic Hands or one of the latest Kardashian Al-Qaeda recruitment videos. And in those tropical places I've sauntered through like a colonial fart that's just been released from a 60-year-old trunk made out of camphor wood, I'm English don't you know, I've heard a lot of people complaining about not having enough food or money, being unable to find work, and apart from the lovely weather, being entirely trapped in a quagmire of woe, as they use their zirconian-encrusted iPhone to log into Facebook to leave a passive-aggressive comment about the photo of Shalene's multicoloured fingernails. But I don't know why I've confined that to the tropics when the same thing goes on in New York or Hull. How many times have I refused to give a vagrant money only for him to reveal a Samsung curve and call in the Almost Massive to beat me with stale baguettes and a bag of special brew cans? Well, never, but I can imagine, and that's almost like it happened. I'm not dictating what people who can't afford iPhones on anything other than 300% APR should be buying. This is a world where both Justin Bieber and ISIS can prosper, so I don't really care. But what I am criticising is that they have been sold what are essentially toys by the type of marketers that Edward Bernays would have loved and Bill Hicks would have urged to have a nice midnight swim after a pint of vodka and a game of who can amass the biggest concussion. Don't get me wrong, I'm not some Luddite who thinks we should be spending our Saturdays doing croquet and crochet and reading about Taft's recent address and generally waiting to die, but I do think technology is a bit of a bogus market that is built on a created need. Battery phones are great for telling your mum to hold the gravy as you're going to see the pictures to see that lovely Mr. Clark Gable, or calling in an airstrike from your Warrior infantry fighting vehicle because the British Army is too incompetent to upgrade its badly outdated medium-range field radios despite entering a theatre it's been preparing to insert into for months. I digress. Some years ago I asked someone I knew, and I say knew because they've since been assimilated into the Borg, why their Apple iOS SJW2 or 3 or what the bollocks ever was so good, and these being the days when Uber was a word usually followed by mention than a seacar from a fat bald man who'd have been one of the first to be removed from society by a fascist purge routing out Vox degeneracy. He explained that at the touch of a particular area of shiny plastic, the phone would automatically call the cab company it had discerned was geographically closest, and that it could also scan barcodes inside shops and compare store prices to those offered by an online-only retailer now famous for whipping its employees harder than a dominatrix might whip a happily married conservative politician, and not paying tax. Also like a happily married... well, you get the point. As I have my own barcode scanner and backup in my ankle holster for whenever I need to be a massive prick to underpaid retail staff, I wasn't particularly impressed with these features, and there seems to have been little progress in the iPhone and all of its rip-offs, other than an app to make it a massive pedometer and the ability to watch 2001: A Space Odyssey in all its 72mm glory just as Kubrick intended, through perspiration-saturated earphones on a subway car with more funk in it than the 100 greatest records of the 1970s. You won't believe it, but I edit on a computer and not with a rusty penknife and glue made out of tree sap and crushed ants. But I'm at a loss as to why people who don't need their computer to run Woody Harrelson hair simulators or play World of Warcraft on New Year's Eve need so much processing power, other than to run operating systems that, like your high school sweetheart, are almost exactly the same as they were 15 years ago but with a lot more baggage. It just seems to be the connectivity and massive online babble that's gotten bigger. Yes, one day all this is obviously leading up to doing exactly what Voltaire said and inventing God, who, while being totally omniscient, will have the emotional intelligence of an autistic spider. But I'm not too worried about that. In fact, for all my whining about technology, I'd fear not so much the day when the Windows 98 running the Pentagon takes over and uses everyone's iPhones and webcams to make a snap judgment about humanity and conclude that it could do with a nice dose of radiation to its eyeballs, as the day when some sallow government official who looks as though there's only a couple of organs he's yet to throw up makes an announcement that there's no more internet and all the last 15 years of taking pictures of our freshly baked flanges and emailing each other at 3 in the morning has done is create a society of narcissistic psychopaths who have suddenly become very bored. Just a thought. You know, I read recently about Facebook's bots and I started to wonder what if I'm a bot, and I suppose